අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Saturday, the 17th of June 2023. Creditor talks. President leaves for France to address international summit for new global financing pact. Talks to be held with Paris Club creditors on debt restructuring. New legislation. Special investment law will be implemented from next year, says State Minister of Investment Promotion. Green light. Committee on Public Finance approves bill to establish Parliamentary Budget Office.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Indivadi Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A warm welcome. You're joining us tonight, this Saturday's edition of First at 9, and I'll take you straight to your top story. President Ranil Wickremesinghe left the island this morning on his official visit to France and the United Kingdom. During his stay in France, the Sri Lankan head of state will attend an international summit for a new global financing pact, where he will also address a high-level panel discussion at the summit. President Wickremesinghe is expected to meet with Paris Club creditors to discuss matters pertaining to Sri Lanka's debt restructuring process.
French President Emmanuel Macron has invited world leaders, including President Ranil Wickremesinghe, to participate in the highly anticipated Global Leaders Summit for a new global financing pact. The event, which is scheduled to take place in Palais Brongnier in Paris on the 22nd and 23rd of June, aims to address pressing challenges faced by the world today. Heads of states from across the globe, leaders of multilateral development banks, international organizations, the private sector and international NGOs are set to attend the summit. The summit is expected to shape a new financing toolbox that will be rolled out through 6 high-level roundtables and 40 parallel events. It will provide the opportunity to examine interactions between multilateral development bank reforms, mobilization of private capital, climate finance, green infrastructure, and set the stage for new agreements to relieve debt distress. Accordingly, on the invitation of his French counterpart, President Ranil Wickremesinghe will address a high-level panel discussion at the summit. During his stay in France, the head of state will also meet with Paris Club creditors to discuss matters pertaining to debt restructuring. Following his visit to France, President Ranil Wickremesinghe is set to embark on an official visit to the United Kingdom.
The Committee on Public Finances approved a bill to establish the Parliamentary Budget Office with one pending amendment. Chairman of the Committee on Public Finances, Dr. Harsha Da Silva, said the legislation was long overdue and it will inject much needed independence with the analysis process of the budget.
A meeting of the Committee of Public Finance was held recently under the patronage of its chairman, Dr. Harsha Da Silva. During the meeting, the COPF chairman approved the bill for the establishment of the Parliamentary Budget Office. The bill was given approval with one pending amendment to present the budget of the Parliamentary Budget Office within 60 days. During the COPF meeting, Chairman Dr. Harsha Da Silva noted that this legislation, which was long overdue, will inject much needed independence in the analysis process. The committee scrutinized key areas of the bill and paid special attention to areas including the scope of the Budget Office with regard to the evaluation on economic costs and revenue generation. It was mentioned that there is no mandate to evaluate social impact. The Budget Office is able to stay consistent with the National Physical Plan and disseminate information in strict compliance with the Act that ensures no sensitive data of compromising nature would be shared. COPF says a new provision grants the ability for leaders of recognized political parties to forward their own party economic manifestos to the office for independent analysis. This is expected to enable greater transparency and accountability by aspiring candidates who will be required to have a scientific methodology to their manifesto provisions.
Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Nimal Siripal Silva said the government plans to engage the private sector to market Sri Lanka tourism effectively. He made these comments addressing a ceremony to declare open the new passenger terminal of the Kankasanture harbour. The Ports and Shipping Minister also said the Indian government will be funding infrastructure development projects at Kankasanture harbour.
The new passenger terminal of the port of Kankasanture, built by Sri Lanka Ports Authority at a cost of 450 million rupees, was declared open yesterday under the patronage of Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva. The new terminal has a capacity to facilitate 200 passengers at a time. The subject ministry said development of the prevailing jetty, construction of 2 new jetties and a warehouse have also been planned at the Kankasanture harbour. Following the opening of the passenger terminal, India-owned Cordelia Cruises MS Empress became the first cruise to call at the port with 800 passengers. The arrival of the cruise vessel is part of a new program launched by Sri Lanka Ports Authority and the Ministry of Ports to welcome luxury passenger vessels to the terminal on a weekly basis.
We have already spent 125 million for all these buildings here, and we want to make this port a live port. The Indian government has committed some money for the development of the KK's port. It is not for the purpose of, I am not looking at from the angle of earning dollars. That's a separate issue. But what we want is the connectivity. People to people connectivity is the more important thing rather than money. I spoke to several tourist people who came in the ship, and they say many good things about Sri Lanka. They say Sri Lanka is clean, people are smiling, and they love to come to Sri Lanka. So this is the message we have to give to the whole world. So therefore, more than trying to earn some money from the tourists, we must build a goodwill and attraction to Sri Lanka through all these people who are coming here. So as the minister, I am very keen to ensure that the private sector do this part of the marketing, etc. Because the government can't do the marketing. Government can't do business. So the government of His Excellency Ranil Wickremesinghe has taken a very firm policy decision to involve the private sector in the area of tourism, hospitality, trade, maritime, aviation, etc.
Also in local news, General Secretary of the United National Party, Palitha Bandura, says opposition leader Sachit Prema Dasa will never become the leader of the country. Also speaking and commenting on the political situation in Sri Lanka, member of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya Tissa Attanayaka says members of the SJB will not join hands with the government, claiming that it will only be an attempt suicide.
අන්තර්ජාතික මූල්‍ය අරමුදල කිව්වේ දේශපාලන ස්ථාවරත්වය ඇති කරන්න, විනිවිද පෙනෙන ගමනක් පෙන්눔 කරන්න, ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය ස්ථාපිත කරන්න, ස්වාධීන අධිකරණයක් මේ රටේ තියෙන බවට තත්ත්වය උදා කරන්න, මේ කියපු මූලික කාරණා වලින් තවදුරටත් මේ රජය ඈත් වෙන්න තත්ත්වයක් තුල අපට පොඩි බයක් තියෙනවා.
දැන් පෙන්නනවා අන්න එන අර්බුදයක්. මේක දැන් ආණ්ඩුව ඉවරයි. වැටෙන්න යන්නේ. රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා ගෙනියන්න බෑ කියලා. වෙන නායකයෙක් නෑ රටට. මේක ගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන් එකම නායකත්වය රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා විතරයි. සියලු දෙනාටම කියන්න අතරමං වෙන්න එපා කියලා. මේ රටේ සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස සම්මත් ජාතීව නායකත්වය බාර ගන්න. කිසි දවසක වගකීමක් ගන්න නැති මිනිහෙක් තමයි සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයා. ඒ නිසා තවදුරටත් එතන ගිහිල්ලා රස්තියාදු වෙන්න එපා. එන්න එකතු වෙලා වැඩ කරමු.
නමුත් අපිට එකට එකතු වෙලා වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් පරිසරයක් නෙවෙයි දැන් තිබෙන්නේ. මොකද එතුමා වාඩි වෙලා ඉන්නේ පොහොට්ටුවේ පාලනයත් එක්ක. ඒ පොහොට්ටුවේ ආණ්ඩුව කියලා කියන්නේ මේ රට බංකොලොත් කරපු පිරිසක්. සමගි ජනබලවේගයේ කිසි කෙනෙක් ආණ්ඩුවට නම් මේ මොහොතේ එකතු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ එකතු වෙනවායි කියලා කියන්නේ සිය දිවි නසා ගැනීමක් පමණයි.
අනුරාධපුරේ ඉන්න ශෙහාන් සේමසිංහ මුදල් රාජ්‍ය ඇමති කියනවා වෙන නායකයෝ නැහැ. ඊට ගන්න රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ළඟ කියලා. දිනුම් අමුණුගම රාජ්‍ය ඇමතිවරයා ඇවිල්ලා කියනවා මාධ්‍යයට මේ රට ගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන් එකම නායකයා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ කියලා. එහෙනම් හැරිසන්ට සමගි ජන බලවේගයෙන් ඉඳලා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ළඟ හිට ගන්න බැරි කමක් නැහැනේ. මොකද මම එතුමත් එක්ක අවුරුදු 25ක් වැඩ කරලා තියෙනවා. අපිට ඕනන්නේ මේ රට ගොඩ ගන්න පුළුවන් නායකයෙක්. එහෙම නැතුව කතන්තර කියන නායකයෝ අපිට වැඩක් නැහැ.
State Minister of Higher Education Dr. Suren Raghavan says his ministry is focusing on the internationalization of Buddhist and Pali University in order to allow students of other countries learn Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Addressing the media, Dr. Raghavan said steps have already been taken to address most of the pressing issues related to the discipline of monks at the Buddhist and Pali University.
Some of the structural and fundamental policies that this ministry is taking, particularly on higher education reform. There was a social uprise and social cry about the Buddhist and Pali University in Sri Lanka, the way it was run, and the so-called ragging and the subculture that overwhelmed those universities. We have now streamlined most of those issues of those universities and are now looking at a different era of knowledge seeking and distributing in those universities. Amalgamating the two universities is one of the things that we've considered, and then maintaining distance between lay students and ordained students, and residential studies for lay students and ordained students was discussed separately, and internationalization of these two institutions whereby we would attract scholars as well as students of Buddhism from other countries had been discussed. So there now, as a result of this, there is a 21-member National Committee on the Higher Education of Buddhist monks in Sri Lanka. The names will be published soon. By next month, I wish to inform the committee and what we propose to do as far as Buddhist studies concerned in Sri Lanka.
Indian Women Entrepreneurs Federation urges Sri Lanka to promote a Made in Sri Lanka initiative for Sri Lanka's growth and development. Details after this break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි. ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්. අබාස් මිලගණන් දැවන්ත ලෙස අඩු කළා. අඩුම මිලට අබාස් වෙතින් පමණයි.
ත්‍රිත්වයේ තහවුරු කළ විශිෂ්ටත්වය දුෂ්‍යන්ත මහබදුගේ චරිත දිසානායක සමිතරත් නායක සිසිජී නුගේගොඩ ගම්පහ.
Physics නිලන්ත ජයසූරිය නවපන්ති ආරම්භය සුසිපුවන් ගම්පහ සීලින් බෙන් නුගේගොඩ සයන්ස් සෙන්ටර් ගාල්ල.
පහනුවර කුරුණෑගල කෑකල්ල අංකකේ භෞතික විද්‍යා පාඨමාලාව නුගේගොඩද අතික්‍රමණය කළ වගයි. ෆිසික්ස් දර්ශන ඔකුවෙල.
තනිව යන ගමනට නිවැරදි ගිණුම් කරන මග හේමාල් පෙරේරා.
Welcome back to the news. In local news, the National Intelligence Agency of India has filed a charge sheet against 13 persons, including 10 Sri Lankans who had been allegedly engaged in illegal drugs trade and the attempt to revive the LTTE in India and Sri Lanka.
According to Indian newspaper Hindustan Times, the National Investigation Agency of India has filed a charge sheet against 13 persons, including Sri Lankan nationals, in its probe into the India-Sri Lanka illegal drugs and arms trade case relating to attempts to revive the activities of the LTTE in both countries. The 10 Sri Lankans include C. Gunashekaran alias Kimbulayale Guna, Pushparaja alias Pokudu Khanna, Mohammad Asmin, Sunil Gamini Fonseca alias Kotagamini, Stanley Kennedy Fernando alias Bumma, Nalin Chaturanga alias Ladia, Tanushka Roshan, Suranga Pradeep alias Velle Saranga, Dhanaratna Nilukshan and Tilipan, who is reportedly the son of Kimbulayale Guna. India's NIA added that the charge sheet against the arrested, accused of illegal drugs trade to fund, amass and stash of weapons for the revival of LTTE in India and Sri Lanka was filed on Thursday. The Hindustan Times, quoting the National Intelligence Agency of India, said the drugs were being sourced from Haji Salim, who is suspected to be residing in Pakistan. The agency also added that the accused were using foreign WhatsApp numbers to carry out the trade.
Taking you to business news, State Minister of Investment Promotion Dilum Amunugama says a comprehensive investment law applicable to all investments will be implemented next year. Speaking to AdaDerana, Amunugama said the new investment law will also cover labour laws and conditions on investment approvals and taxes. Now, the minister added that an investor facilitation centre has been established to expedite investment approvals until the new law is implemented.
Special investment law which is being done by the oversight committee is a comprehensive law that will be applied to investment and investors. So it will also have a part of the labor law included. Then it will contain about how the approvals have to be granted for constructions and etc. And also it will include what the concessions and what the criteria are going to be on certain types of investments on certain thresholds of the FDIs. So these are the main areas the team or the oversight committee will be looking at. As an example, currently if you take process to construct a factory, there are 17 stages from taking over to the land up to construction. Then once your construction is done, up to commissioning, there are another 5 stages. And then there is the labor law, which is the EPF, ETF and all that you have to get approvals from. Then the environment approvals, there are 4-5 stages which you have to go through. So all these will be in one compact law, which will contain what the labor conditions are, what the tax conditions are, and also what the approval conditions will be for FDIs, for foreign direct investment, especially under the BOI. There will be so many amendments to a lot of acts also that are presently available. So it might take up to the end of this year to come up with the final thing. But meanwhile, the consultative committee, we have come to a short-term solution also, which is the IFC, the Investor Facilitation Center, which is backed by the IFCC, that is the Investor Facilitation Center Committee, which contains of all the director generals of all the entities or agencies that need to grant this approval. So the short-term plan is what we are doing right now is we meet on a weekly basis and fast-track the approval. So we will have to operate with the IFC for the rest of this year. But hopefully 2024 we will be able to kick off with the new comprehensive investment law and the regulations.
Entrepreneur Dilip Jayavira says Sri Lankan businesses can improve to remain competitive in a constantly evolving global market by differentiating products and services using the country's unique geographical, cultural and civilizational advantages along with human capital. He made these comments participating in a panel discussion on entrepreneurship and global markets in line with the Global Economic Forum organized by Women in Management. Meanwhile, President of the Federation of Indian Women Entrepreneurship, Dr. Rajani Agarwal, who also joined the panel, said Sri Lanka must look to promote a Made in Sri Lanka initiative to help growth and development of the country.
What advice would you share with aspiring entrepreneurs looking to enter the global market?
If you want to start something, you need to develop the idea and you have to have the passion to work for it. With all the challenges and opportunities, you need to work on it and then that's where you will go further. If you're talking about the global market or if you're talking about expanding your businesses, it's also important that you look at the opportunities for businesses that have potential in the bigger run. Like for example, if you have more demand, then it's easier for you to have your products or services being sold or given. It's important that you know where your product line is. It's important that you know where your competitors are.
How important is cultural understanding when doing business in different countries?
Cultural understanding is very important if you are doing business, especially going to different countries. Because culturally, if we know each other, then we appreciate and we feel confidence in dealing with our businesses and holding hands with each other as far as business are concerned. Cultural understanding helps facilitate effective communication because understanding culture context enables entrepreneurs to communicate clearly, avoid misunderstandings, and adopt the communication style. If you want to expand your business in different countries, you have to take care of the liking of the culturally acceptable food and all those kind of things. We should know what is legal requirements of the other country. This also becomes a part of the culture because we are going beyond the boundaries and we have to understand that.
What role does technology play in global entrepreneurship?
When we talk about entrepreneurship, technology has made it so easy for us to be friends, to get together, to do business without seeing each other. We have AI, we have robotics, there's so much technology is doing for us. The next thing technology does, it taught us to be more innovative, to think out of the box. So technology in business is something that we should never underestimate. It has improved our productivity.
How do you think Sri Lanka can expedite her presence in the global market? And how can Sri Lankan entrepreneurs stay competitive in a constantly evolving global market?
I just believe in differentiation based on the geographical advantages of a nation, and its cultural and civilizational advantages could be used to again build the differentiation. So if you really want to push anything, service or a product, again, as I told you, if Sri Lanka wants to believe that Sri Lanka can, Sri Lanka should believe in the concept of a civilizational advantage and a cultural advantage and the geographical advantage, put together the human capital of Sri Lanka. So we definitely can do that the moment we are convinced that it is possible.
The only thing which I find the initiative lacking is made in Sri Lanka. So I think if each one makes it a point that made in Sri Lanka is more important than what you got in Sri Lanka, that will make a lot of difference in economy and the growth of the country.
In international business, Microsoft's co-founder Bill Gates met China's President Xi Jinping as tensions remain high between Washington and Beijing. Gates is the latest high-profile US business leader to visit China since it reopened its borders. According to Chinese state media, Xi told Gates that he was the first American friend he had met in Beijing this year. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is also expected to visit China in the weekend. This was Xi's first meeting with a foreign business figure in recent years. He stopped traveling abroad in 2020 when China shut its borders during the pandemic. Although this year, Tesla's Elon Musk, JP Morgan's Jamie and Apple's Tim Cook all traveled to China, none met the president, although they held meetings with senior Chinese officials. Gates is in China currently in his role as the co-chairman of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That's all from us here tonight. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.